Everything has changed for the 49ers in a matter of one weekend. With the division title and number one seed lost, the 49ers now have their playoff path, and it's more difficult than people would have hoped. And combined with some major injury updates, this is going to be the biggest challenge yet. We're going to break that all down for you on this episode of Niners Digest. My name is Ethan Galbraith. Make sure to subscribe to the channel because we noticed 97% of you haven't done so yet. It's free to subscribe, and if you do, you won't miss any Niners updates because we're going to give you everything we got, including what to realistically expect from this team following their Week 18 disappointing performance. I'm going to be honest. We all saw it. Niners 3, Seahawks 13. With the rivalry uniforms, the all-black uniforms, it just did not prove to be a good luck charm. The Niners came out pretty flat. They just did not play to the level that a lot of people anticipated, myself included. This goes partially props to Seattle because they shut down a Niners offense that has been playing lights out, and they were the one that played lights out. And I think they exposed a couple flaws in this Niners team that could prove to be a real red flag for a potential deep playoff run. Before we get into the updates, this video is brought to you by Kalshi. Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the United States, and on the platform you can trade yes or no on real-world events including sports and pretty much anything else. Whether you're in California, Texas, New York, Kalshi is live in all 50 states, and as a sports fan you can trade on game outcomes, player performances, playoff chances, all on a regulated market where you can cash out at any time. Think of the Niners, for example. Christian McCaffrey is having a great 2025 season and is the frontrunner for Comeback Player of the Year. You can trade yes or no on that. Meanwhile, the Niners are far from frontrunners in the NFC Championship race, but if you think that they can go on a run, you can trade yes or no on that as well. You can download Kalshi using the link in the description, and if you use the code DIGESTNFL, you'll get $20 off after trading $100. Thank you again to Kalshi for sponsoring this video. So what red flags am I talking about? Well, I've talked about the Seattle defense a little bit, and that's where we're going to start because this graph right here of all the team statistics, or most of them, is really telling about the first major red flag because the Niners offense has been playing lights out up to this point, and they got held majorly in check in this game. I mean, the first statistic at the top, first downs. The Niners only got 9 first downs. You're not going to win very many games with only 9 first downs, especially when your opponent's got 23. 2 for 9 on third down just isn't going to cut it either. And then right below it, total plays. I think this is the biggest indicator right here. 67 to 42. You're just not going to win a whole lot of football games when you run 25 fewer plays than your opponent does. So what is that an actual indicator of? Well, the first part is that the Niners offense just couldn't stay on the field, combined with the defense not being able to keep the Seahawks off the field. And although that wasn't necessarily a big issue because the Seahawks were only held to 13 points, and when you hold a division opponent to 13 points in your own building, usually you're in a good spot to win. So I want to start with the offense because, again, that's just not going to cut it. The Niners offense just was flat, and they put together one really nice drive that ended with a red zone interception, tipped at the line. We all saw it. It's just a bad play, a good play from Seattle more so than a bad play from the Niners. But the Seattle defense just manhandled the 49ers offense more or less. And I think it starts with the Trent Williams injury. Obviously, Trent did not play in this game, and he was dearly missed. Austin Pleasance didn't even play that poorly. It's just not having Trent Williams there is just a big missing piece. That's a future Hall of Famer right there. You're not going to win a whole lot of games without him, and that was very clear this past game versus Seattle. So the Niners offense was flat. The Seahawks defense, to their credit, played really great football. They out-schemed them more or less, and they just outperformed them all across the board. But I want to now go to the defense because part of the offense not being able to get on the field was because the defense couldn't stop the run. And it might not be super telling here because the Seahawks ran for a little over 4.5 yards a carry. That's good, obviously, but look at the big chunk plays. Both Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet both had runs of over 20 or more yards. That just isn't going to fly because Seattle runs this 2 running back system and it works for them, obviously. But think about just foreshadowing a little bit to the Eagles. They have Saquon Barkley, who's an aggressive bean runner who could break off these big plays. We've seen that this year. We've seen it in the past. So the Niners, this is a bad sign for them. And Kenneth Walker ran for nearly 100 yards on just 16 carries. That's 6 yards a pop. That's just not going to cut it. And so the first part is the Niners defense couldn't stop the run. And that doesn't look like it's going to get that much better just because of some major injury news. Of course, starting with Ricky Pearsall, that was another player that, of course, he was not available for this game. And Kyle Shanahan clarified he had re-aggravated his PCL injury. And that, it's just frustrating. I've talked about this in the past when he missed the Indianapolis Colts game a couple weeks ago. I know it's frustrating for him. It's frustrating for the team. It's frustrating for the fans because Ricky Pearsall is a great wide receiver. And yet, he just has not been available. The best ability is availability. And it's unfortunate that he was not able to make this game. Who knows how much of an impact this would have made on the game, but the fact that he wasn't out there just hurts. So that's the first major injury that to keep an eye on. But if he missed this past game, hopefully he'll be evaluated and look out for him to be back for the wild card game. But the Niners are going to miss a big player for the wild card game, and that is linebacker Tatum Bethune. Kyle Shanahan announced today that he is out for the season with a torn groin that he suffered versus the Seahawks. So the Niners linebacker room is competing with the defensive line for the thinnest availability, because now with Tatum Bethune's injury, he's out for the season, and it's going to be Eric Kendricks now. And I talked about Eric Kendricks previously. I hate to say that I'm right about this, but I said he was probably going to play some important snaps down the stretch of the season. Well, now he's the starting Mike backer for the wild card matchup. But the Niners linebacker room as a whole is just dealing with brutal injury after brutal injury. Here is John Chapman put this in a great perspective. Every Niners linebacker that made the initial 53-man roster is currently injured. Fred Warner's on IR. D. Winters was injured as well. Tatum Bethune was injured. Nick Martin's on IR. Luke Gifford was also injured. So the Niners front seven just continues to build up injuries, and it gets to a point where you wonder if this is going to be insurmountable, because the Niners have been playing next man up all year, and yet they're running out of guys. They're running out of players. Eric Kendricks, the practice squad pickup from earlier this year, he's a seasoned vet. He's been in moments like this. I'm excited to see how he performs, especially against an Eagles offense that loves running the football. And I think that he could be a good matchup, especially with the veteran presence. But who else do they have? The Niners injuries in the front seven, the defensive line and the linebacker rooms, are getting borderline insurmountable. And the boiling point might be this wild card weekend versus the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll talk more about the Eagles preview and how that shapes up going into later in the week before the game. But I want to start with what Chase Sr. said right after the Niners game, or right when it was announced that the Niners were going to have to play the Eagles in Philly. He said, quote, "The Eagles have an opportunity in this game to really control and dominate the game at the line of scrimmage like we saw with the Seahawks against the Niners on Saturday night. I thought San Francisco was exposed a little bit in that game." I couldn't agree more. That was, in my opinion, the biggest expose of the Niners. And I don't even know if I used that word correctly there. The Niners got exposed here. And this is, I think, the biggest red flag, because at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, the Seahawks just dominated. That's why they were able to hold on to the football for so long. That's why they kept the Niners offense to minimal production for most of the night. So the Eagles play a very similar style. They love dominated line of scrimmage. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Niners can what's really expect from this team in this matchup. We're going to talk more about this later in the week. We'll give you a more full in-depth preview. But right now, I'm going to say my final thoughts are this. The Niners did not look good against the Seahawks, and it doesn't look promising for the next matchup versus the Eagles in the wild card. But I will leave with this. Fred Warner is reportedly telling his teammates that he's targeting the divisional round of the playoffs for his potential return. Kyle Shanahan clarified that it would probably be the NFC Championship game. But regardless, the Niners need to win one, maybe two playoff games, and they get their best player back. It's obviously way easier said than done, but it looks more and more like the Niners, the light is still there at the end of the tunnel. It got a lot harder to reach the light. Now you got one eye closed, metaphorically speaking, with even more injuries building up, but it's there. So we'll see how the Niners can perform against the Eagles. We'll see what players get healthy leading up to the week. So we'll keep you all updated on all the injury news. But for now, that's all for this episode of Niners Digest. Thank you again so much for watching. My name is Ethan Galbraith, and we will see you in the next video.